Hey, what's up, everybody? This is the DeFi enthusiast here from Crypto Ronins, and I've once again got the wonderful Kenso Trabing from Morphware. How are you, my friend?
Yo, what's up, my man? How's it going? Sorry, I just got my coffee, so I'm just mixing mixing the milk and the ice and all that.
That's all right,
So
man.
please ignore that.
The man doing the energy deals also needs some energy, right?
I need some energy. Yeah, it's 10 here, and yeah, we've been cooking all morning, so I just needed a little. It's my first coffee of the day.
Yeah, love the dedication, bro. So, dude, today I've got some questions, right? And we're gonna get into them. And these questions are from the community. So, one thing that a lot of people have been asking is that what is exactly, like, I know you guys are extremely transparent, but some people are still confused about a certain thing. So the first question that I want to ask is that what does the 24 megawatt UAE rollout look like in practical terms? When is the build out starting for this? And when do the miners go live? When does the revenue start flowing from the UAE side?
So we're no longer actually building in the UAE.
Pardon?
We're no longer building in the UAE.
Okay. I see. So what exactly is going on the UAE front though for Morphware?
We're actually focusing a lot on Paraguay, and we're exploring deals in the US.
Okay. So could we expect some future mining facilities within the US as well?
We've been offered a few opportunities, and I don't want to speak too soon, but that's the direction things are going.
Okay. Okay, exciting stuff, man. That's awesome. That's awesome. And the other thing that I want to talk about is, people are wondering, you know, they want some more financial clarity in terms of this. So they're like, you know, some people were asking me, and can you like provide clarity on the projected revenue Morpher expects to generate from its energy deals in February, and whether those payments are already contracted or performance based?
The projected revenues beginning and well, I mean, I think we're taking a little bit of a different tack here in terms of energy sales and all that different stuff. I'm actually going to get into that in a moment, but yeah, those were all contracted.
Okay.
So I don't know what performance based means in the energy space, but energy deals, yeah, usually to the extent of my knowledge, revolve around contracts.
Okay. Okay. Do you want to elaborate on any of them if it's all right with you?
Yeah. Um, I mean, I would say the price of Bitcoin going down definitely shores up a lot of appetite for Bitcoin mining. But I'd say also that now's the time a lot of good moves are made, in terms of equipment purchases. Like we just purchased $150,000 worth of Bitcoin miners. I'd say, people, anyway, like without getting too far into it, I'd say people always talk about buying the dip. Then when the dip comes, they're always, understandably apprehensive about it because there's a lot of FUD in the media, the mainstream media, and beyond. And then there's a lot of macroeconomic headwinds that a lot of major global economies are facing. So, and Morpher is not necessarily precluded from a lot of those, right? But the main factor here is the price of Bitcoin's going down and electricity is rising around the world. So those two factors haven't changed. For everyone watching this, we don't get a list of the questions beforehand. These all these all these are things we have to process in real time. But yeah, on the energy front, I mean, people still want energy. That's for sure. I'd say the way I'd put it is we've been reflecting a lot, and this is why I prepared a presentation here. We've been reflecting a lot on what energy sales mean for token holders. That's a question I've been getting a lot,
Yes.
right? What does all of this good news mean for the average Morpher token holder? Because the whales will stand to benefit no matter what. They DM me all the time. They, right? They come here in person to this office itself. And, I think what's important here in the grander scheme of things, when the price of Bitcoin's really down, is just, I know maybe it sounds stupid or even naive or something like that, but it's just to just chill out, like chill out a little bit. Like the prices, I've seen Bitcoin at like $1,000 or like $3,000 or whatever, remember back in, I think it was 2020, early 2020, or maybe it was 2020, early 2020, early 2021, it hit 3,000. It was like floating around 16 and then it
Two,
tanked. And then
2000 actually.
yeah, 2000. Yeah, 2000. And then when I came to Paraguay back in 2022, I still remember I was in a meeting with some folks and there was this meme. Anyway, like long story short, it went down to like 16,000 maybe, or 17,000 from like, I forget where it was floating around, but it kind of went down a lot. And people were asking me, does this change your plans? Right. And I was like, no, Bitcoin has value. Right. So obviously none of this is financial advice, by the way, for anyone watching. The way I'd answer that question is basically that, what we've been doing is reflecting a lot on what these energy sales mean for token holders and how to get the community more actively engaged in the upside of what we're doing here and what makes sense for the project. Because, we've been working on this project for, gosh, I think it's almost 5 years now. And I've been working on it full time since then. And some of the folks here have been working on the project for, a couple years or a year or whatever since the token's been live. And I'd say, we have a very long-term look on the project, right? Each one of these energy contracts is 5 years or something like that, right? 4 or 5 years. So the point is that's just one cycle. That's one power cycle, if you will, or one PPA cycle.
Yeah. Okay. What happened to the plans of launching your own blockchain? I remember there were a lot of talks around that. Is that still something that's going to happen, or is there any need for that thing? Or if that is going to happen, how will it be a different thing from everything else that is out there?
Great question. So Vitalik recently posted something about L2s that I thought was really smart. That's a disposition I've shared for a long time. Basically, since the project started, there's been a lot of changes in the space, especially at the protocol level, base protocol level. So what I mean by that is this, there was the L1 wars, right? Back in 2017, everyone claimed to be an Ethereum killer. Projects like EOS and others, right? Eventually ended up adopting proof of stake earlier than Ethereum, projects like Algorand and Near, which are obviously still around, but perhaps not as prominent. Then, no shade to those projects. I think the guys behind both projects are really smart. It's just that they never ended up usurping or dethroning Ethereum, right? And then what happened was there was the sharding / roll-up conversation. So there was Optimism and someone else on one side, and then there was Harmony, right? They're one of our early investors. They were pioneering the sharding approach, right? And both of these routes were really intelligent and theoretically fairly high bandwidth. And then we approached the ZK era, right? With all of these different approaches to privacy preserving protocols and, private transactions, right? So within this paradigm, where Morphware saw itself always was using Starkware, which is the fastest, albeit centralized block sequencer, right? Just to get down to like the blockchain nitty gritty. I haven't prepared here for this, but I'm just kind of going off the dome here, as they say. Morphware always was supposed to be like an L3 on top of Starkware. So there was Kakarot, which was a ZK EVM, which sat in between Starkware, the L2, and Morphware, the L3. And then basically having the ZK EVM Kakarot, right, sit in between the two because you can't compile Solidity contracts like a very tractable smart contract programming language that all of our smart contracts and our token is written in, right? You can't write Solidity and have it compile and play nice with Starkware, right? Which is by far and away the best technology as a block sequencer, which is something I'm going to skip if someone's watching doesn't know, because it's It's quite technical. The point is, it still makes a lot of sense to do something like an L3, but that's if Morphware really leans into the agentic era, right, which a lot of people are pursuing. This, I think it's X402 standard, if you will. A lot of projects are chasing the X402 standard, which I think is great. I think it makes a lot of sense. I've always said, I think way before it was cool, that agents need a way to pay themselves and pay others to do things. I think something that's kind of starting to highlight this is that the emergence of this mult book thing, which became passé very quickly, but opened the door to a lot of conversations about what an agentic economy might actually look like, practically speaking. But it's not an engineering priority. We only have so many engineering resources. World-class engineers cost a lot of money, and we need to keep them focused on the alligators closest to the boat, as they say. And so for us, our engineering priorities are not building a blockchain because it's they say in computer science, I think Donald Knuth said, premature optimization is the root of all evil. And in a Knuthian spirit, building a blockchain is inherent. Building your own blockchain is inherently optimization. If you're building an L3 to process some application level transactions that are specific to your use case faster, that is inherently optimization.
Excellent. Excellent. So my next question is, and it's also regarding the token, because I know everybody in the chat talks a lot about the token. I know you kind of answered some things, but I just want some more clarity if that is possible. So we're not doing the blockchain thing for now, but it's still something that could happen in the future.
It's something we intend to do for sure. It's just that, you have to think about engineers as like, it's just very grokkable, I think. It's like, there's only so much engineering bandwidth, and we have so many other things to do before building our own blockchain that while it is something that on our roadmap, it's not something that's prioritized.
Okay, so is it possible? I know last time we discussed one of the use cases for the token was, where people could, they could set up their miners with you guys by holding Morphware tokens. That was one of the use cases. Is there any possibility for you to elaborate on what other utilities the token would currently have, or you guys are planning to announce? If there's anything you can give away, is there anything like that?
Yeah. I prepared a little deck to talk basically about that, to just speed run through a lot of high level concepts of what more utility, basically the additional utility that we're adding for token holders.
Okay.
And in a follow-up segment, like later on today, I think we could kind of go through the deck in a lot more detail.
Okay, sure. Awesome. Okay, so my next question is regarding the energy deal. Beyond the currently disclosed agreements, is there any active pipeline of new energy deals for 2026? And what stage are these negotiations in, if you can delve into that possibly?
Yeah, we're looking at different, totally. We have over 4 deals we're doing.
Awesome.
5 maybe.
Awesome.
Yeah, they're mostly no, we have like over 15. Now that I think about it. 14. But 10 are here in Paraguay. One's in the US, in the Midwest, and 2 are in the US. And the rest are in Latin America. There's one in anyway, I'm not going to talk too much about it, but these are in varying stages. The ones in the US are pretty mature. They're ready to go. They would require us buying, some equipment that's kind of currently outside of scope. And I don't think he knows that we're on a podcast. So, and then he was telling me that we have a meeting a very important meeting in 5 minutes. So, wasn't making that up. That's our Latin American director. and general counsel. Great guy. So
Awesome.
yeah, no, we have a lot of energy deals. I mean that's the whole thing, right? It's the question is how do we add value to the token holders first and foremost? I think what people in the community constantly forget is that Morphware, like the team, has tokens, right? Like they're locked up, but it's like we care more than anyone about the token, and we've extended the unlock because we believe in what we're doing.
Makes sense. Makes sense. And awesome. This is a two-part question, and this is from the community member. So at one point, there was an effort to establish a more direct community communication interface through Ugluk. I hope I'm pronouncing his name correctly. And over time, that channel lost momentum. From your perspective, what broke down in that process? And also, more importantly, how do you think a healthy line of communication between builders and the community should function in practice? And where do you personally see the balance between openness and signal control? And what kind of structure within the community would you feel comfortable engaging with going forward?
It's a lot of questions. The first one I'm not going to comment on. The second one, I'd say, I mean, what they're asking for is for me to be more active, right? But here's the thing: we have a lot of stuff going on here. Taking a step back, could I be more active in the community? Absolutely. But is there a need for, right? If I say one thing and the marketing team isn't on the same page, then it gets confusing, right? But then everything also becomes a conversation. It's like almost like, then you almost become a politician, right? Where you're running things by your speechwriter and you're running things by your, I don't know, your chief of staff and all. It just becomes very inauthentic, for lack of a better phrase, right? So,
Yeah.
then here's the other dynamic just from living this, right? I've always been, I think what people forget is that the project's been around for 5 years and I've been working on it full time for 5 years. And I've been active every single day, whether I'm in the Telegram or not, right? Meaning I'm out in the countryside doing things. I'm out here around the city. I'm taking calls. I'm doing meetings with lawyers, blah, 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 with banks and different things. We're not going anywhere. That's what people are really kind of asking in this question is they have some sort of psychological trauma related to being rugged on previous projects. And they think, well, the market's down. Maybe Kenso and the team are just going to run away with everything and I don't know, close their Telegram handle and close the Twitter and just and run into the jungle, right? I mean, like, and who knows, right? And I'm just thinking, like, this is so. What's crazy, actually, if you think about it, is that that's actually kind of like the market standard in our industry, which is so crazy. But again, we have a very long-term view on the project. We're definitely not going to do that. We're here to stay. We're biddling, I think, faster than most. We aim to be the fastest, and I'll try to do better when it comes to communication, meaning be active in the Telegram and all this stuff. But there's a very observable dynamic which should be highlighted within the scope of this conversation, which is every time I come into the Telegram and the price is down, everyone piles in and asks 1,000 questions that have been asked before, right? And honestly, it's very annoying. So, and it's kind of like, and then people are like, well, let's say someone asks like a question that's been answered like 5 different ways in the last 36 hours. And then I don't answer like the 7th time. And then it's like, well, like, is the team going to rug? Are they, why didn't they answer the question and all that different shit? And I'm just like, it actually drives us crazy. And there's a lot of stuff to do. So instead of engaging in a lot of that stuff, which is frankly a waste of time, we're here to stay. We're not going anywhere. And we're constantly biddling.
Yeah, that's why I've been a holder since day one, man, and I haven't sold a single token,
Man, appreciate you.
There's still some things that I feel that I need to ask you again, if that's
Okay.
all right with you. And so basically, one of the things that keeps popping up is we already discussed the revenue thing that you guys are doing it on a contractual basis, right? At the moment, whatever deals you guys signed, but in the community there's this assumption, I would say. They're saying that there's this general understanding in the community that the figure might be around 200K per month, but it seems that that assumption may not reflect the current structure. So can you clarify what the approximate first payment was for this month, or whenever it is, if that is even possible? I don't even know if you can do that, but the community wants to know that, what type of monthly payments are you getting out of these energy deals?
Right. So we will we can basically go ahead and talk about what the revenue pipeline looks like on this little deck that I prepared earlier.
Sounds good. Yeah, sure.
What we've been thinking a lot about is how to go ahead and drive value to the actual XMW token holders, which is a really good segue actually from the question that you just asked. Basically, what does it mean to be a stakeholder in the community, and what does the future look like for Morphware?
Awesome. Yeah.
So the big picture here is basically what we're going ahead and doing is splicing our land in Valenzuela into smaller chunks, half of which will go towards a very large scale development that's yet to be announced. And then basically 20% of which we will actually go ahead and tokenize for the community. So what I mean by that is this. Basically, the Valenzuela site is roughly 10 hectares, and that means it's about 25 acres, right? So we're going to take about 5 parcels, which are 0.8 acres each, and we're going to go ahead and introduce a new way for people to participate as community members in the upside of our project. And what that means, pragmatically speaking, is an RWA type approach that reflects real ownership, not just in the land, but in the power. So
Okay.
going ahead and drilling down here is what we call a 6 megawatt power parcel, or a power parcel for short. Parcel, for those of you that don't know in real estate, meaning basically a plot of land. So starting in the top right here, what we're talking about is a fractionalized deed and the actual permits to go ahead and build. Second, we're talking about the actual power, as I mentioned, including the contracts. These will all be tied together in what's called an SPV. And then we're talking about the actual construction, not just the shipping containers, but the wall around them, the transformers, the concrete pads, the road into the sites, the gate, the security booth, and everything else. And that's including the fiber optic connection as well. Then we're actually talking about, in addition to the construction, but separately, the actual water loops. You need a lot of piping, you need actual pumps, and you need actual water tanks in addition to wells to go ahead and circulate water rapidly to keep everything cool. Then what we're actually talking about is a separate subsidiary token, which we'll go ahead and talk about, which is much like basically an oil rig in its naming convention, right? So basically, each one of these, what we call parcel DAO tokens, are actual governance tokens, which really basically tokenize the ownership and the embedded rights within the SPV. SPV meaning special purpose vehicle, basically a legal structure, or basically a super focused corporation or company, basically that's hyper targeted just on this one particular data center site. Last but not least is the actual security. So we're going to have 24/7 security staff on site for each one of these parcels, and in actual cameras and all that other stuff. I just realized that perimeter is misspelled there. But this again is basically a proposal, a draft of something that we're proposing to the community. So what's interesting here, when you take a step back, is the answer to the question, why now? First of all, we know that power is super in demand, especially when it comes to data center sites, right? I think 46% of US GDP contributions in 2025 were literally related to data center development. And moving on here, what's really interesting is Paraguay is one of the best places to run AI workloads or to mine Bitcoin, and it's 100% renewable, right? So last but not least, what's really interesting here is I think a lot of people are getting whiplash, rotating from project to project. And what this is really is basically an RWA picks and shovels play, right? Where basically this token will represent real ownership. And it's not just one thing. Basically, if this is really successful, we plan to basically do a bunch of other sites, which we have in the pipeline. Taking a step back here, what's interesting is a new approach to the logical next step of the project. So the project originally started as a decentralized GPU network. But what was obvious very early on was that model parallelization technology on chip would always outpace technological developments related to model parallelization over residential network connections, meaning basically chips like the B200 and so on would outpace anything that you could do in terms of decentralized model training over a bunch of consumer grade internet connections, right? So what we did was we went ahead and pivoted towards becoming an infrastructure as a service platform back in 2022, where we really focused on soaking up affordable energy in interesting places to do business. Now what we're doing is going ahead and giving the community access to directly participate as owners via governance DAOs, into basically like what we're developing down here in Paraguay and beyond. So the big picture here is really ownership. And a lot of RWA projects make a lot of claims when it comes to ownership. But what we found after talking to our attorneys at length about this is that you actually can tokenize land. And that's pretty cool because we've earmarked, again, only 20% of our site towards this, but it's a way for the community to really participate. Cycling back to basically what we were talking about before, the original impetus of the project was GPU aggregation, going ahead and matching providers to data scientists via decentralized auctions on chain, and going ahead and closing the payment loop and basically the verification process in a completely decentralized capacity. What we're talking about now, though, again, is real ownership, right? The idea is basically that the land title, the grid interconnection, all the civil works involved, and the actual power going to the site, the actual electrification, being embedded in one tradable unit. And what we plan to do is basically spawn a bunch of these projects so people can go ahead and participate in the upside of the project as community members. Now, what we're talking about, pragmatically speaking, really is 5 parcels initially on the Valenzuela site, and then 5 more regions across the country with similar profiles, some of which are turnkey operations and share the same modular design, meaning they're shipping container based. And these DAOs can actually go ahead and decide to do whatever they want on the land. They can sell the land, they can develop on the land, they can open up some sort of agricultural operation if they want. But what we're really talking about here is a model for community participation. And eventually we'll extend this model outside of Paraguay, right? So the question really becomes, what is a power parcel? What a power parcel really is a 6 megawatt medium tension modular data center. It includes, again, the grid interconnection, the physical infrastructure, the connectivity, and the ability to go ahead and decide on what the workload should be, whether it should be DAO funded ASICs for Bitcoin mining or artificial intelligence workloads, right? So there's really two tracks per parcel. What I mean by that basically is the much cheaper option is to go ahead and enter the hosting business, or what's called the power spread business, where you're buying power at one rate and then you're charging it at a higher price to someone else, right? And that's a faster time to positive cash flow. And it's much less capital intensive than actually opening up a Bitcoin mining in and of itself. Track two is really for RWA platforms and protocols that are much larger than us. And the idea here, which is really interesting, is Morphware stands to benefit from either option. And I'll go into that in a moment. But basically, the plan that we basically go ahead, the way we plan to go ahead and release each one of these new series tokens is basically by releasing a liquidity, an LBP or liquidity bootstrapping pool, right? So this pool will start at $4 million per project and then descend via Dutch auction to 2.5 million. That'll cover not just the construction, but the deposit to the electricity company. And Morphware stands to benefit from each one of these sites in a variety of ways. So I'll go into basically how Morphware stands to benefit, meaning the XMW token. But something I should highlight is if the DAO does something really dumb, like decides not to pay its electricity bills or, something along those lines, Morpher would actually step in via clawback rights for a period of 90 days and basically go ahead and just make sure bills are paid and things like that. Because what we don't want is some sort of negative contagion where, like one bad actor casts a very broad shadow across the broader parcel, right? So the way Morpher holders basically stand to benefit is the following. First of all, the power uplift. What we're going to do is charge protocols and DAOs a 10% markup on the electricity rate if they don't have a sufficient enough amount of Morphware staked. This obviously reduces circulating supply and aligns our long-term benefits and incentive structures with the broader community, right? And then second, since there's a lot of legalese when it comes to RWA projects, and it's basically very complicated from a legal perspective to go ahead and do, is we're introducing a 3% trading tax on each parcel's governance token. That has nothing to do with XMW, the actual Morphware token, but what this will actually help us do is go ahead and manage the legal process and go ahead and help grow the Morphware actual native token grow via buybacks, which I'll get into on the next slide. And then also the way that Morphware stands to benefit is what's called the EPC process, or engineering, procurement, and construction, and then operations and maintenance, the O&M process, right? We'll build all these sites and then go ahead and just conduct some of the governance plumbing and the negotiations with the grid operator, which is called Ande, handling the billing and the related kind of subcomponents. What we plan to do when it comes to the 3% platform tax on governance tokens and the EPC fees is basically one, obviously cover our overhead, two, extend our runway, right? And three, actually grow buybacks by purchasing more miners for our own sites. So what I mean by that is this. First of all, even though this is stepwise, we'll be splitting different revenue streams to each one of these buckets or each one of these endeavors, right? So we may dedicate some yet to be determined percentage to covering overhead, some to extending a runway, and some to buying miners. This process, since we have 10 projects in our pipeline, will actually help us really go ahead and grow the project faster than we ever could by reselling energy. Because even though energy sales are high volume, they're quite low margin. So if you have any questions, I'm curious to hear them. I'm sure that was a lot, but I'm curious to know basically what you think.
That's a lot to unpack, Kenzo. I mean, it's also exciting and also, yeah, that's that's some. I mean, like, so if I had to like really condense this, would it be fair to say that Morphware is now behaving more as a RWA token, but also as an infrastructure token in trying to improve the overall growth that is happening in Paraguay? Am I on the right track, or am I off?
No, totally. So, I had this epiphany when I was reflecting on, we were getting a lot of feedback from the community and a lot of questions about basically what it meant to be a Morphware token holder, especially as the price of the entire space went down, right? Bitcoin's at it just hit 65. It's gruesome out there. Every project is getting clapped. But here's an interesting thing. I started to reflect on basically who the most valuable companies in the world were, that are like publicly traded and this and that, and why BlackRock is worth more than, say, a Bitcoin miner or even a real estate company or something like that. And the mantra I arrived at is that BlackRock is to securitization as Morphware could be to tokenization, starting with data centers, right? So a lot of people are doing things in the tokenization space. They're tokenizing residential apartments or condos, right? They're doing things in land as well. But what we're doing is we're tokenizing basically data center campuses. It's super niche, but it's something that we're good at, right? In terms of one, Morphware had a great launch in 2024. It was like one of the best launches ever and of that year. And then basically, two, when it comes to the actual data center sites, like anyone can go look at our mining pool, our uptime, right? Our uptime's like literally world class when it comes to Bitcoin mining and all that stuff, and beyond actually. So here's the point, right? There's a lot more money for the protocol for XMW in this strategy when you do the math than energy sales. The project will grow far faster by doing this than just reselling energy to some of the big guys, right? And while we have ongoing commitments to sell some energy, right, that's just scratching the surface of what we could do. We have 10 other projects in the pipeline, right? And when we think about how do we go ahead and commercialize those opportunities in terms of turning dollars that we take in or money, whatever, in whatever form that we take in, right? And then basically growing the project from a valuation perspective. First of all, what you could argue, one, it's about tightening the working capital cycle, right? The distance in between AR and AP, or accounts receivable and accounts payable. Two, it's about the reliability or the quality of earnings, right? There's a famous phrase in Wall Street, QOE, right? The idea that if I win the lottery, right, the expectation is not that even though there's a huge level of income, right, in a time series, the QOE is very low. The quality of earnings is low because it's not expected that I'll win the lottery again. Does that make sense? Whereas if we go to a bunch of DAOs, if we go to a bunch of protocols and we spool up a bunch of DAOs comprised primarily of community members and beyond, and we say, hey, first of all, you'll own a real data center site. And you know that we know how to do this because we post about this stuff on Twitter all the time, and you can see our mining pools, you can see our uptime, right? And we can show you the electricity contracts that we have, right? And then two, we can go ahead and actually, and then two, basically, if people don't believe us, for the people that do, we'll just churn these sites out, and then people will see that it's a thing, that we're actually capable of doing what we say we're going to do, right? And then two, it's about like basically shoring up some of the supply. The problem right now in the chart, just to like really zoom in, and I know founders aren't supposed to talk about the chart too much, but there's, Morphware had such a fair launch. We didn't snipe, we didn't do anything like that. Like, the thing is, we don't have any supply control. And when we talk to advisors, we talk to different people, something that they're frustrated with in terms of like, their potential to go ahead and market the project is the fact that one dump can fuck up the momentum of the chart, right? And it sours the sentiment in the community. It makes the chart look like shit when someone does something like that. And it creates a lot of just almost, you could argue, like, it creates a lot of emotional work for the management team to go into the Telegram and to talk to people one-on-one, via DMs and whatever, and to calm everyone down about what some random guy did, right? Which the team has to answer for, right? Which we saw the other day with some big sale. So the point is the staking requirement for people that purchase, ownership claims in these actual data center sites, the requirement for them to stake some not insignificant amount of supply, whether that's like 1% or 5% amount of supply, right, will have two effects. One, it'll immediately reduce supply, circulating supply, right? Like, let's say we have 10 sites, right? And we say, hey, everyone has to lock up, 2% of supply in order to get this electricity rate, right? Or maybe it's 5% or whatever, right? And you have 10 of those. That's like 20 to 50% right there. And I think 25 to 20% is in treasury right now. So the point is that drastically could reduce supply alone, or circulating supply alone, right? And then two, there's a network effect thing. Like, let's say there's a DAO, right? And it's 20 friends that are already in a group chat about Morphware. And they say, you know what, let's go buy a data center site. It's kind of nuts, but these guys seem pretty legit. They seem like they know what they're doing. Let's take a punt on this, right? So they go ahead and they buy the RWA token, right? Which is a governance token, a real thing, right? And they own the land and all this different stuff. And basically, and let's say they only have, let's say the threshold is 3%. They have to lock up 3% of supply, and they have 2% of supply across the 20 of those friends, right? Now they have to go ahead and negotiate basically with the whale or someone like that and bring them into the DAO and get them to stake some amount of supply, right? And I think that's a really powerful dynamic because it takes advantage of network effects. And on the whale side, it leverages eigenvector centrality, right? Like the graph theory concept that, there are more powerful nodes. Some nodes in networks are more powerful than others, right? So it will not just increase their sway in the community, but within that particular DAO. And they may ask the DAO, hey, what's in it for me? Right? I don't want to buy this governance token or something like that. Or I'm spread really thin, right? Or whatever, The point is, this is a really powerful way to induce conversations in between protocols or DAOs, right? Because we're already talking to RWA protocols that are really excited about this. They're all over this. They're like, this is awesome, right? We want to mine Bitcoin, and we've been looking for something like this. I can't believe it. And it's 100% renewable. So the political optics, which will become definitely more and more of a thing as time goes on, it'll be really important. The fact that Paraguay is 100% hydropowered. I think it's a really powerful concept in terms of, the network effects, the eigenvector centrality, and for community participation. Because right now everyone asks, what is XMW really about? Like, what do I really get in exchange when I purchase this token? Right? So, we actually spoke a bunch about this before, about like our plans with XMW and all that. We're not really ready to release those plans yet because there's still some like regulatory stuff to kind of like iron out. And to be honest, for those plans, anyway, there's a little bit more work to do. But before we make like a big announcement related to that, because there are some like, there are some guardrails that we have to go ahead and abide by. But what's really powerful here, I think, is the fact that, again, yeah, the network effects and the eigenvector centrality. So both sides win, the smaller community
Awesome.
members and the large ones.
Wow. Okay, so but knowing what we know, right, so far, everything that you are able to reveal, would it would it be fair to say that XMW is now more of an RWA and launchpad token as opposed to just being an AI token?
Yeah, so I wouldn't say it's a launchpad token. I would say I would definitely lean more towards RWA, but I would actually submit that it's more ICP. So right before this and this dip right now that we're all kind of like observing together as a broader Web3 community, there was kind of like the ICP meta, right? The idea that like people are super, in my opinion, they're super tired of meme coins, right? Or maybe they're not. It depends on who you ask, right? But the point is, I think what is emerging as kind of a pattern that I'm noticing is people want real ownership, right? And all of these different platforms, some of which are really cool, by the way, like I know of one Street Foundation, they're super cool, and a bunch of other projects are trying to do this. They're super cool. It's always been our intention. I'm not sure if you remember back in 2021, but it's always been our intention for Morphware to be something bigger than a DAO, right? Something that represented kind of like real upside and real ownership of maybe I shouldn't even say that, but like the point is, something along those lines, right? Just going back, I bet we could talk about, I don't know, maybe this isn't some of our previous recordings back from 2021 or 2022. Maybe they're not, but we've really always intended for that to be the case, right? And some of the best advice I ever got from an old friend at Consensus was, don't become a DAO too early, right? And it's not a control issue. It's just like the fact that everyone knows this in startup land, whether it's Web3 or not, like founder-led organizations just have a much higher survivability rate than other ones, right? When they bring in like a professional CEO or it becomes controlled by like a DAO with like a hive mind or whatever, like, it always kind of, things always kind of go to shit pretty quickly, right? So I think, we've been working on this project for 5 years, and we plan to work on it for another. I plan to work on this for the rest of my life. I think this is really one. It's the route. When you look at the financials, this is really the route for us to take in terms of quality of earnings, and in terms of how quickly we could grow the project in terms of capital velocity, right? And then three, like the thing about energy sales is we're giving away too much for too little, right? We're doing a lot of the legwork. We have a lot of sunk cost, frankly. And like we've invested a lot into being able to do this business. And the community doesn't feel like it's participating in the upside.
Yeah,
Right. So
yeah. Sorry, go on.
no, and I think and then I think it's also just frankly speaking, I think it's about the story people tell themselves. Right. Like I mean, when I buy some random token, it's kind of like, well, kind of why did I do that or whatever, right? I mean, I don't actually trade, but I'm just saying in terms of like this scenario, right? The point is, here I think what we're doing is we're providing an avenue for people to actually own something.
Awesome. Awesome. Yeah, this actually brings me to my next question as well, and we'll get back to the more for a token because it's related to that. But what I wanted to also ask you was, um, that from a structural standpoint, you guys could theoretically exist as a private infrastructure and energy company even without the token, right? So what is the deliberate reason for anchoring the ecosystem around Morphware, as in XMW, and how should serious capital think about its long-term role in value accrual? Yeah.
It's a good question. So one, so when I started this project in 2021, I think no one expected it to last this long, right? I mean, a lot of projects in that cohort, from the original, Docs 51 guys, who I have a lot of love for. I think for a long time they probably thought the project was dead, and we ran it up to like 150 million market cap or whatever, right, or something like that. So the point is, one, there's about kind of like a commitment to, or not a commitment, but just like you want to do right by the people that believed in you, right? There's that, right? And in addition to that, in addition to this concept of doing the right thing, which I think is really important, two, basically, I really do believe in tokenization, right? Because like there's just a lot of bullshit in the world, right? And there's all these kind of weird gotchas, or these weird kind of like, covenants and contracts, and like all these weird like little things where it's really easy to get fucked over, basically, right? I'd say it's easier than ever. And I've been fucked over a bunch of times, right? So the point is this, is when it comes to tokenization, I think that there's a lot of power there, right? Like if Morphware behaves, like a world-class RWA platform, and actually tokenizes this SPV, which is tied to the land, the power, the water, the civil works, and all the stuff there within, and the parcel, then we can go ahead and like establish a brand, and that's like a real business, that we can just like copy and paste and rinse and repeat with one data center site after the other. And I think that's powerful, and that's how we grow. When you look at the math, that's how we grow faster than ever. It's through tokenization, and it's why I think not projects, but companies like BlackRock are so big, right? BlackRock didn't invent the concept of a passive index fund. They just had distribution, and they understood the power of what they were doing.
Awesome. Awesome. So Kenzo, if I had to ask you in very simple terms, for especially our XMW community as well, there are several revenue streams that are being worked upon right now, from my understanding, with all of these questions that you've answered. You've given a lot of amazing details. There's a lot of stuff that is being developed. A lot of stuff is being done, right? So this brings me to my question in particular. So there is a percentage of the profits from all the mining profits will go into the buybacks of the token, right?
Nothing's changed there.
Yeah, that nothing has changed there, right?
This will only accelerate that.
Yeah. And then all of these things that you guys are doing, right? All of these things you're developing, what kind of percentage from all these different avenues are going to go into the Morphware token as well? Like, do you have any number in mind?
That's something that we're discussing with our advisors right now. They're really great. I just got off a call with Ooglik and Venom about this. I think they're on board. They're really excited about it. And excuse me. And yeah, I think, and we're talking to other folks basically about what exactly the flows should look like. What we want to do, this is a phrase I'm borrowing from Ooglik, is we want to underpromise and overdeliver, right?
Yeah, I think that's a wonderful policy, man. Because I think a lot of people in this space overpromise and underdeliver. So it's kind of good to see that. It's good to see that. The only reason I'm asking so many things is because the community has kind of been going through this. They're a bit nervous, and I can understand why they're nervous because of the market conditions. But going back to our conversation, you were saying that, if one person dumps, that could mess up the chart. But the reality is, Kenzo, I mean, looking at every other big crypto project out there, there have been massive dumps and things. So why is there so much freer this time around? I mean, what has changed in these last 2 years as opposed to anything else in crypto for all these years? I mean, we have seen that, the biggest projects have massive dumps and yet they have recovered. So why is there so much fear? I mean, shouldn't there be excitement? I mean, if you're kind of getting a dump, you're getting a better entry price, right? So
Are you talking about like Web3? Or are you talking about, I mean, like in general, or are you talking about Morphware in particular?
I'm talking about Web3 in specific, which relates to Morpher. I mean, what I'm saying is that, like you said that, if somebody dumps even, one time, if they dump their XMW tokens, right?
Yeah.
That could really affect the chart, and people start getting worried. But the thing is that dumping of tokens is not like It's not like something which is new. Many major projects have gone through that. So why is the XMW community so nervous about that?
It's a combination of four things. It's herd psychology, market manipulation, macroeconomic headwinds, and I forgot what the fourth one was, but just going through it. Oh, and correlation with the Nasdaq. So basically, Bitcoin. What people don't realize is Bitcoin, even though everyone agrees it's digital gold, still correlates highly with risk on assets, right? Because Bitcoin, what people forget is crypto is a long duration asset. And as an asset class, that includes technology stocks. A lot of fears on Wall Street right now that ChatGPT can automate everything. It's why Adobe dropped something like 11% the other day. When it comes to herd psychology, doesn't really need an explainer. The title captures what exactly it is. What else did I say? Market manipulation. There's a lot of conversation about that on Twitter. Don't need to go into that. I mean, I'm talking about bad actors in the crypto space. And the last one, what was the last one I mentioned? Macroeconomic headwinds, right? When the dollar index plummeted below 96.3, it was a real warning sign for the economy. It happened right before I think gold surged past 5,000. And I think gold is still hanging right above there. So basically what people don't realize is gold is a risk off asset, right? People correlate Bitcoin and gold a lot. And maybe there was some covariance there for a bit, for a year or so. But, by the way, none of this is financial advice. I have no idea what I'm talking about. If you take my advice and you trade on it and you lose money, don't blame me. But the point is this, and again, these are my opinions. And again, no idea what I'm talking about. However, I'd submit that the fifth thing, actually, just to add one thing to there, is a 4-year cycle. There's a lot of OGs that are very locked in on the 4-year cycle and have gotten burned on thinking this time it's different. Very famous adage in trading, which is a phrase that you should be very kind of nervous about hearing, so to speak, is hearing the phrase, this time it's different. Like, this is why it's different this time. You know what I mean? There was the telecom boom, right? Where people built fiber optic cables across America in the early aughts, around the early 2000s. And, people said, there's an AI boom and all this different stuff. And then this is why, this time it's different, right? Blah, blah, things like that. With regards to why the AI bubble is different than the .com bubble. I'd submit that what's interesting about, or anyway, anyway, does that answer your question without pontificating too much?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. So, here's my question, Kenzo. I mean, this is something that I've been wondering. So, whenever the crypto market goes down, right? There's a lot of fear, and people start, the moon boys to just run away, right? It's all doom and gloom. Everything is over. We've seen that play out so many times. My question is, if Bitcoin was to actually crash and go to zero, as Warren Buffett and guys like Dan Pena and all these oldies that that I can't relate with anyways. But they keep saying it's going to go to zero. If it actually does, right? What does Morphware have you guys planned any way to survive if Bitcoin goes to zero?
No, look, it's a really good question, but look, it's like asking a gold mining company, what if no one wants gold anymore? Or like a vegetable company, what if someone doesn't want carrots or lettuce anymore? Or an agricultural company, like a beef trader or a slaughterhouse, like what if no one wants beef anymore? Every company has a core mandate, right? Ours is to turn energy into money. One of the best ways to do that is Bitcoin mining, right? Because there's a high utilization rate, and what else? I think the second, the third, I believe the second or third most profitable thing is green hydrogen. But the point is this: is Bitcoin mining, perhaps not at this very moment because it just hit 65. In general, or historically speaking, Bitcoin mining has been one of the most profitable things to do with Bitcoin mining, right? So we have not just like a mandate, but we have a vision of the future. I don't think Bitcoin's going away, right? People get freaked out in markets all the time for whatever reason. Like we said, macroeconomic headwinds, market manipulation, um, right? Just, correlation with the NASDAQ, all this different stuff. I'd submit that it's one way everyone doesn't do it, right? No one, there's a lot of like almost, you could argue, there's a lot of, how do you say it? You have to be really resilient, I think, in entrepreneurship. I think, Elon Musk, who I think anyway, like, I mean, he said like, entrepreneurship is like eating glass and staring into the abyss. And I think, I don't agree with everything that guy says, or even like him that much, but there's a modicum of truth to that, right? So I'd say, with regards to the question of like, is there a plan B? No, there's no plan B. Plan A is either run AI workloads or mine Bitcoin. And if Bitcoin goes to zero, I think we'll be in an enormous amount of trouble.
Okay, so yeah, so you don't think that there could be anything that could replace Bitcoin?
I mean, think about it, right? I mean, Bitcoin is, I mean, just like wiring money internationally is very hard, right? Like, I mean, like wiring money to Paraguay is almost impossible, right? Even from like a bank account and tax records and all this different stuff, it's like crazy. So the point is like, but Bitcoin, it takes like 11 seconds. I'm sorry, 11 minutes. And ETH, it takes like 14 seconds, right? So, right, and you could be, people have all sorts of wild, whenever Bitcoin goes down, everyone calls it a Ponzi, and they say it's only for bad people. And, everyone knows like all the FUD, right? And all this different stuff. We've been through all these, like the whole Bitcoin is dead again chart, or that website. And then when Bitcoin's surging, everyone's a genius, and it's the new digital gold, right? But there's all these coins that always kind of like come along, and they either say they're the ETH killer, or like Bitcoin with privacy, or some kind of combination of the two, or whatever. I submit that Bitcoin's here to stay, and that's why we're mining it.
Makes sense. Makes sense. Makes a lot of sense. Yeah, no, yeah, because some people claim that XRP is just going to replace it or something. What are your thoughts on that?
XRP. I like the XRP guys. I mean, I think that they have their own they're in their own world. But the mandate of XRP is to replace Swift. It's not like to become. It's not to become a new medium of exchange. I mean, like for for the everyday guy, right? I think that's what Bitcoin really is, right? I think that Bitcoin is you could argue about the store of value thing, especially at this price. It's extremely volatile in price. However, I'd submit that it's still a great medium of exchange. The network hasn't gone down. It's not like they haven't done a rollback or something like that. And yeah, I think it's still really powerful, just conceptually speaking and pragmatically speaking. I don't think it's going away.
Right, right. The reason why I'm just asking. Even I agree with you. I don't think Bitcoin is going away or is dying or anything. But come to think of it, let's say Morphware, you know, I believe Morphware is going to succeed in its mission. But let's say you guys become the go-to RWA token, right? And tokenization is then all over. It's a mainstream thing. Let's just say, right? And even then, if BTC was to go down, you think you guys could then survive? Like considering that now tokenization is a very mainstream thing. You guys are already in it. Like you guys are pretty much the people that like the company that people go to for RWA related things. In that
We
sort of
don't want
situation, it's just hypothetical, man.
we don't want to be the RWA. We don't want to be the RWA token.
Okay, okay,
We want to be the Halliburton of crypto. So what that means is this: look, the RWA platforms are now coming to us because they've heard about this little plan. We floated this plan through some of our channels and to get some feedback from advisors, and people were instantly like, I know someone who wants to do this, who wants to buy a parcel right now, right? A big project. They've been looking for a Bitcoin mine, blah, 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 blah. And this would be a great fit. Let me put you in touch with them, right? So one big, humongous RWA platform is someone that one of our advisors is speaking with tomorrow on our behalf about this, right? We see ourselves, right? So that's kind of like, so the reason I say Halliburton is this. One, we had a call with them recently. They're really interesting guys. There's some opportunities that we're exploring, in the energy sector with them. But here's what's a really interesting thing about Halliburton as a company. For those that don't know, it's an oil field services company. So they make money going ahead as literal picks and shovels plays, and going ahead and servicing these fields. So some people do. So what we were doing before was called almost like wildcatting. Wildcatting in oil, just so everyone knows, is going around, say, like Pennsylvania, Texas, Wyoming, whatever, and then paying to poke really deep holes in the ground looking for oil or gas, right? And just as a gross overgeneralization, right? So what we want to do, right, and that's a business, but it's quite risky because it's expensive to poke a hole in the ground. I mean, I'm talking about a real deep one, right? Looking for oil. That's called wildcatting, and that's kind of like I came down to Paraguay back in 2022, and I was looking for energy opportunities and this and that, and eventually we found them, right? And now we've got a bunch of them, right? So, but now we've got so many opportunities that we can't possibly develop all of them, right? We literally just don't have enough money. So what we want to do is extend these opportunities to our community members, our loyal community members who we love so much, sincerely. We do it for them and for you. Because, one, we believe in what we're doing, and two, we can make money doing it. But then as kind of like an emerging side hustle, let's say like a bunch of guys in Florida get together or wherever, or, in Carolina, and they want to buy a data center site. That doesn't mean they want to move to Paraguay and clean miners and replace hash boards and swap out PSUs and replace burned out power distribution units, PDUs, and all this other stuff, and clean the water, like in their water loop and all this different stuff, replace the filters. There's a lot of work on a data center site that's like not necessarily grunt work. It is technical, but it's not um it's not where the innovation is occurring in business, right? They kind of want to be a passive owner. They want to be kind of a step back, right? And that's where we come in. Morphware can come in as a field services company and make money because we're already going to be doing it for our sites at Valenzuela and around the country and around the world, actually, right? We're already going to be doing that. And there's a great article in the Wall Street Journal about how one new, very slept on sector that is making a ton of money right now is data center cleaning. It sounds totally nuts, but these guys that are servicing the data centers, and this is what inspired this Wall Street Journal article. I'm a loyal reader of the Wall Street Journal, love it, right? These guys are making money hand over fist, not building data centers, but cleaning data centers, right? So I thought, wait a minute. We could make data centers for people in our community and protocols, right? But we want to take this opportunity to our community first, right? And beyond. And then we want to go ahead and service these projects, right? And I think that's a really exciting value proposition. One, because it's the quality of earnings, right? We want to go ahead and be the best field services operator in the world when it comes to data center maintenance and all that different stuff. And two, what is the long-term business value here that we're talking about? It's really, actually, when you think about it, it gives us deep insight into what the real situation is. Like Bob Marley said, right? You got to check out the real situation. And the problem is no one knows what the fuck is going on with any of these new data center developments that are occurring around the world. All these blockbuster headlines. Wall Street's talking all about this, by the way. They're just like, half these projects will never come to fruition. Right? That's kind of like the estimation right now. And people are asking, like, what is actually going on in terms of the entire data center industry and the AI boom, right? And the crypto mining boom, right? I think that by being a field services company, in addition to the tokenization platform that is just focused on this. So maybe BlackRock is kind of like not as good of an example as like Blackstone, because Blackstone's hyper focused on like particular types of real estate, right? Going ahead and being the tokenization platform or the all-in platform for the intersection of data center land and Web3. I think that's a powerful intersection to go ahead and capture, and it's something that no one is. And it basically is going ahead and tackling one of the most aggressively growing and sexiest parts of the energy sector, which is electrification of data center sites. I think that's where the future lies. Yeah.
Wow. So if I'm not mistaken, the Morphware holders have a chance to get exposure to these new data centers that you guys are planning to acquire and run, and like there's some incentive for the holders as well from that.
Yeah, because here's what's really powerful. Let's say a group of guys from the Morphware community goes ahead and gets in on Val 3. So Val 3 is, right, we're already developing sites 1 and 2. So we just call it Val 3, right? And that'll be the ticker symbol, Val 3. And it's going to be a very small market cap token, right? It's going to be like almost like a micro token or whatever.
You're saying you're doing this for the Morphware community as well, right? You're giving them exposure. What type of exposure are they getting from the data center situation here?
Look, it's all about shoring up supply right now. That's our big problem. We have a bunch of loyal holders, but once in a while someone comes along and they dump. And it becomes a big issue, not just in terms of, not just say financially, but you could argue like emotionally for the community, right? And when it comes to community management, I've reflected a lot on this, right? When I'm away from Telegram, I'm not like, I don't know, on the beach with a drink. I'm really like thinking critically about how to grow the project. And here's the point. What we have to do is shore up supply. And here's the way that most projects shore up supply. What most projects do is they open up a staking thing and they create a super duper inflationary program. It's an idea we tinkered around with when we bridged to BNB, but you'll notice that like our incentives were very moderate. They're very agreeable for the community. But it's also why a bunch of people didn't rush into stake and provide LP on BNB chain, right? So we got to thinking, well, I think we're heading in the right direction here in terms of wanting to manage supply in a really clever way. But we've got to align our long-term incentives with the community in a much more elegant way. And the way that we actually could go ahead and do this is, one, going ahead and aligning our long-term interests. Two, giving people real ownership. Three, this concept of basically like mutual upside, mutual prosperity almost, right? And the thing is this, if someone stakes, or if a group of folks like the Power DAO or the Parcel DAO rather, goes ahead and stakes the required amount of XMW, whatever that's going to be, right? They'll get electricity at 5.7 cents, 5.742 cents, right? That's actually like that's going to be their rate for Bitcoin mining. And for AI, it'd be much lower. Here's the thing. That's an incredible rate, especially for the required amount of CapEx, right? And the thing is, they'll be very incentivized to go ahead and they'll be really incentivized to go ahead and stake. And that will, again, reduce circulating supply. And that's the best possible thing we could do for the token right now.
Right. And regarding the buyback situation, I know you guys just bought another 31 new miners, right?
Mm-hmm.
And when can we expect those to go live? And now, how many miners in total will the Morphware facility have? And when will all of these go live? And once they all are functioning, could you like give a rough estimate as to what could be the ideal daily buyback number per day once all of this starts to go live? Once all of them are functioning, once all of them are live?
I know the miner count, but I don't want to say the wrong numbers in terms of everything else you asked. Basically, yeah, those 31 miners will be online by the end of April, so within 2 months. And let's see. And then the miners coming from the UAE should also be here in 2 months. And that'll put us at around 690 miners, I want to say, or 680. I'm not sure. Don't quote me on that. But it's around that. But what's really important right now, especially with Bitcoin being battered a little bit, is the quality of miners, right? The new ones that we have are almost double or even triple some of our lower quality miners. So we're really basically making a long-term commitment here by prioritizing quality over quantity.
Awesome. But okay. But like, is it actually possible that you guys could potentially, of course, no one knows because Bitcoin is so volatile, but is it a possibility that you guys would be eventually doing buybacks like $20,000 or $30,000 per day type of buybacks for the token?
I don't want to, again, I want to like under promise and over deliver. So, we'll be coming as more data center sites come online, we'll be able to provide much higher resolution numbers. But again, what we need to do right now is shore up supply and increase buybacks, right? And I think basically like what that means, again, obviously, one, it's threefold. One, again, shoring up supply. 2, purchasing more miners, and then 3, growing our AI business. We haven't really talked about the AI business because, we've been learning a lot from the market. It's really tough to go ahead and scale an AI product. And what we've been doing is talking to a lot of existing companies in Paraguay, especially in the IT market, that actually have the distribution networks to financial services companies, which are kind of like one of the biggest target markets for AI workloads, and really kind of understanding how we fit into their constellation of services and products, right? So there's already basically a bunch of companies here that sell advanced servers to, like, say, large banks here, some of which we've had like ongoing conversations with. But the way that we see the Paraguayan market is really as a test bed for the rest of Latin America and beyond, right? So we're learning a lot in terms of basically how we partner and cooperate and compete within existing kind of like commercial frameworks and economies, and moving on from there.
Awesome. Yeah, yeah. We haven't discussed a lot about the AI business. I think would it be safe to say that for now you guys are like it's gone, like it's still there, but it's like a bit more passive rather than active at the moment, right? Am I
Yeah.
correct on this?
Yeah. So, well, no, well, we're actively, I'd say, we're really trying to figure out how we can make a big AI business, given kind of like the cards we have, right? So the cards we have are energy, right? The fact that we can go ahead and construct a facility, right, around this sort of stuff. But the thing is, basically, the way we want to capture value is by vertically integrating, right?
Right.
From the substation to the application layer. So that means basically like we can build the server farm, but the servers cost a lot of money and they depreciate quite quickly because the rapid evolution that occurs within the equipment cycle. So if we buy, say, I know it sounds crazy, but like, each megawatt of AI equipment costs like $20 million. So if we just do 1 megawatt of AI equipment, and that's $20 million of GPUs, those GPUs may be useless in 2 to 3 years, or maybe 3 to 4 years, or whatever the equipment cycle is, right? So we don't have that kind of money. 2, we need a kind of like, it's like the way we see it is like, with like a space launch, you really need to be pointed in the right place or else you're going to completely miss where you're going because you're trying to go so far. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Yes. And
Yeah.
that also brings me to my next question as well. Uh, the This is actually from the community. Somebody asked this question, so I just thought that I should ask you. We discussed in our previous interview about the role of the NVIDIA B200, right? Do you still feel it is as integral of a part to your business as you had originally envisioned? And and a member asked that if not, have you thought of actually replacing it with more miners to benefit the business or something like that? What are your thoughts
Yeah.
on this?
Yeah. So we have thought about that. We've thought about that, and it's something we're actively exploring. But the AI business is not something we're shying away from. What we want to do is go ahead and explore participating much larger data center projects, right? Because there's money in that. But also, we do think that we can eventually compete as a vertically integrated player. It's just that, for each one of these, basically, like, you could call them like SaaS products, for lack of a better phrase, you know, um, you're competing with super well-funded startups with super motivated teams, right? That are just burning through cash. Like, say, a really good example is like, one product I started using internally is Gamma.app. You ever use Gamma? It's like ChatGPT is to Microsoft Word as Gamma is to Microsoft PowerPoint. It's really good. And you know what? They raised $68 million at a 2.1 billion valuation in their seed round. So the point
Wow.
is, if we were going ahead and trying to compete in the presentation space, the deck space. I don't really know what you call it. I mean, we'd be up against that, right? And the point I'm getting at, right? And then open AI is like burning through crazy amounts of money, and like the other large players in the space are extraordinarily well funded. So the point is, there's a constant like learning process when it comes to kind of like our role, not just locally, but in like the broader AI space in general. We don't want it to be limited to data center construction just because the margins are small, right? Just when you're really myopic about that sort of stuff. But it's something that we're actively exploring all the time with like constant conversations with industry leaders.
Awesome. And sticking to this topic right now, um, in Web3, I've noticed the CEO of crypto.com, he's bought AI.com. I'm sure you must have heard about that. He's
But yeah,
bought that
AI.com.
yeah, for like 77 million. What are your thoughts on this concept of AI.com that he's working on? Do you think Morphware could play a role in some way with these guys?
Well, we spend a much smaller amount of money on our domain. Morpher.com costs 3,000, and I think it's much cooler. Obviously, I'm super biased, but jokes aside, I think it's a great domain name. I wish him the best. I always thought Crypto.com was pretty cool. We knew some people over there. I'm not sure if they're still there or not, but yeah, I mean, I really don't think too much about it.
If you had to define the XMW token to somebody, like in like one sentence, or like one word even, what how would you what is the best way to define the XMW token? What is it?
We learned a lot actually from when we were working on this project. Tau ascended. Right? I think they raised a bunch of money, they launched, and they're very successful. And I think people have always kind of misinterpreted what I say when I say Morpher is going to flip Tau. It's not that like we're competitors at all. I mean, we've stepped away from like the decentralized GPU network space a very long time ago. And something we've learned just by like witnessing their success, which I'm really happy about, is that they have all these subnets, right? I see each one of these data center sites, these RWA plays that like we're basically introducing to the market, as something analogous, almost vibe-wise, for lack of a better phrase, because it's not perfectly analogous, but just there's a similar kind of like phenomena occurring, basically, as like these Tau subnets, right? And again, I'd say, what we aspire to be is something, I'd submit that we don't want to mischaracterize like who we are, right? And we don't want to be like we do want to manage expectations, as I said before, right? So I think basically saying something like we're the BlackRock of crypto is like too grandiose and too, we're biting off more than we can chew there, right? But I'd say, we're somewhere at the intersection of like this field services vector, this tokenization vector, specifically targeting data center developments, and then basically something like Tau, where they've had a lot of success launching projects that are within their ecosystem, right? To an enormous degree of success.
So basically, Morphware, right? If we were to characterize it, is more of a real world asset meets AI, and sort of like a launch pad as well.
I wouldn't say launchpad. The thing about launchpads is this is like, because this is super focused, right? And some of these developments will be marketed directly to protocols, two of which I guess some of our advisors are already talking to, but we want to take it to our community first, right? We want them to have the opportunity to go ahead and participate, with some real upside as owners of a project. And I think it'll empower the community, right?
Okay.
In terms of like participation and the fact that they can decide whatever they want to do with their token. Like if they want to do their own buybacks, if they want to do rev share from their sites, if they want to install AI servers, Bitcoin miners, things like that. Um, and this is all something that we've been thinking a lot about, and I think it's ready. I think it's ready for the market.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, Kenzo, thank you so much for your time, man. And it's been an absolute pleasure as always. Are there any other messages that you want to give to the Morphware community?
Well, we're eternally grateful for their support. We know the market's not easy right now, but yeah, we're always trying to innovate and find different ways to provide value to our community members, and I think this is one of them.
All right, Kenzo, thank you so much, man. It's been a pleasure.
I appreciate it, man. Talk soon.
Talk soon.